here at Steen 7904. If you want to get all technical, it's not the start of 2+ hours of nonstop Mlb Dfs conversation because we're starting at 5:30 on the East Coast, a little bit later than usual because we're dealing with a small Thursday night slate, a 5-gamer, taking you, of course, straight up the lock. Crunch time today. Kevin Roth had such a good call yesterday. He nailed the weather for the Dodgers. So he's taking a victory lap and just taking the day off. I assume it was scheduled. He's not going to be on later. I don't know if he'll be tweeting or updating his article. Hopefully he's able to do so. I do have his article here, but it's actually TJ. TJ will be hosting Crunch Time. You got Tim, TastefulTides, as well as DerekCarty, CEO of the Bat and the Blitz. Myself, I am with the $1 Million Duo, Chopper. Chop, a little bit derailed the 5:30 start. Does that throw you off? Is that going to mess up your serial time? Or we're going to be able to adjust on the fly and figure it out? We're still basically leaving at the same time. We're going to yield to crunch time around 6:20.
Yeah, the time doesn't throw me off, Dean. It's the change in the format on me, which is going to get me. But I'm okay with that. I'm a professional, going to go on. It is what it is, Dean. I don't know. College football's here, Dean. Baseball, man. We'll power through it, but I'm ready to watch some football, man.
Navy, Notre Dame. Is there anything else going on this weekend? Is that the only game, or is there other stuff?
No, there's a little 5-gamer at nighttime on DraftKings, and I think it's a 7-gamer on Fanduel, so it'll be all right. It's a nice warm-up weekend.
Are you doing content for the slate?
We are doing content, Dean. We'll crank it up with a little survey, CVR, and then we'll do a show tomorrow for the people, and then we'll really get it rolling. That's like a preseason dry run, week 0, but then full-fledged in week 1, the week after that, so we'll be good to go. Now, Dean, I got a question for you real quick.
Sure.
Now, you're a UCF guy, Central Florida.
Yeah, I got a helmet and everything. That confirms it.
Is there like a natural rivalry there because of the proximity to Florida Gators? Is there a natural rivalry with Florida?
Well, no. If we have a rival, it's USF. And it is the weird thing about USF. I'm not sure if you're aware of the geography of South Florida, but USF, of course, the S stands for South. The University of South Florida is in Tampa, which is not South. They're lying to people to try to get them to come to their school. You're not going to South Florida. South Florida is like Miami and Fort Lauderdale. USF is like 3 hours north of that. So our rival is USF. We're just happy to be acknowledged by Florida and FSU. Of course, we've kind of met their standards and surpassed them by winning the national title so many years ago. So we're kind of in that conversation now. But yeah, if we would have one rival, I suppose it would be USF.
Okay, so you didn't much care about the whole Swamp Kings documentary on Netflix, then it didn't really get to you because you're not a rival.
I heard it's terrible. I haven't watched it yet, but I hear it's terrible and poorly done, and it's kind of what I anticipated. Also, just a bunch of nonsense, and what's I forget the coach's name, the dirtbag. There's me adding my context to it. But did you watch it? I've not watched, but I've heard it's bad. I might watch it, but I haven't watched it yet.
I've watched episode 1, and it's not bad, Dean. It's just that, obviously the people who are gonna, berate it are berating it because they didn't tell all the stories that we want to. We want to hear about Aaron Hernandez and how, what he was like at Florida before he started murdering people, and we want to hear all this stuff. But they didn't tell it all. It was kind of but it's still entertaining as heck, man. So yeah, I'm gonna finish watching. I'm gonna power through the 4 episodes. It looks all right. It's just not like the in-depth story. But I was just wondering because Central Florida, Florida State, is that your rival? Do you feel about them a certain way to where you just won't watch the documentary because I'm not watching anything that has to do with Florida. They suck and all that kind of stuff.
No, I'll watch it. I won't watch it for that. I don't really hate Florida. Yeah, I'm not one of those people. I try to not like hate things or hate people and hate teams.
Seem to hate Urban Meyer.
Well, I'm not a fan. I don't know that wasn't to come off like a hate, but he doesn't seem like the greatest dude. That's all.
What about Siege?
Again, I want to be the root for person more than the root against guy. So there you go. As a general rule, I think it also just good for your whole overall. If karma was real, if karma was a thing, it's better to be a root for person than a root against.
What about Elon?
I mean, does he need anybody rooting for him? He's already won, right? The game's over. Well, why does he need people rooting for him? There's certainly, I won't use that term. There's
Seems
certainly
like a
people,
big hater. We're 3 for 3 here. It looks like, Chop, right?
I'm saying
It's like we're 3 for 3.
You're hearing what you want to hear. You want to interpret it, whatever. I don't necessarily hate the guy. I am not rooting for him. And again, he doesn't need me.
Not nice, Dean.
But what's up, Bobby? You are derailing, but I'm going to now stir the pot.
I'm not derailing the show. I was watching Netflix earlier. I watched the Johnny Depp documentary over the Florida Gators because my girlfriend was interested. So yeah. We talked about this the other day. Actually, all you know about is the pooping in the bed. Is just kind of like that's. I feel like that's the star of the show. I'm not sure what else happened, but yeah. You got any other bullet points? Like a 30? Do you recommend the documentary? That stood out to me. Like I feel like it would stand out to anyone. They seem like they partied a lot, did a lot of drugs, and made some bad decisions. The both of them. I don't know. It's a tough situation there.
Speaking of all that, is the Manziel doc? Is that also on your list?
I watched that. Yeah, Johnny's that was interesting. I feel like they could have gone more in depth with that as well, though.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix docs are kind of sort of hit and miss, and sometimes I never like it. I don't know. We should start the show, but as like the whole Jordan thing. Remember, it was like Jordan's producing his own documentary. He's like when the person that the subject matter probably shouldn't be like the driving force of like how it's presented and having like final say.
I hate that
as a general thought.
I hate that Jordan is like takes all like Pippen gets no credit at all for I don't know. He's just so everyone hates him. He's another guy that he might. Dean, do you not like him? You're 3 for 3. Are you 4 for 4 with Pippen?
So it's they call him no Tippin Pippen, and I mean, look, there's a hierarchy of people like to not like. You know, there's some clear and obvious ones like general, but like non-tippers, like. We live in a society, Bobby, and like again,
he doesn't tip.
Allegedly, again, maybe he does. And
I
I'm
hate
just
him
like
too.
doing something.
That's like the worst person you can be.
Yeah, especially when you're having that kind of status. I know you shouldn't necessarily have an added responsibility.
Yeah, Dean. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I'll also say, Dean, the whole tipping society has gone too far. We tip too much.
Seems a little stingy with the tipping.
No, absolutely. I'm the best tipper. I'm the best tipper in DFS. There's almost no doubt about that.
I'm a good tipper.
I put my tipping record against anybody, no doubt. But I'm just saying that, there's certain industries that you should tip. We've always tipped, but we're tipping too much these days. There's too many people getting and demanding and wanting tips. Like, it's too much, Dean. Like, I don't need to tip you because you're my air conditioner guy coming to check on my air conditioner. That's your job. You get paid a pretty good salary for it, or whoever it might be. We're tipping everybody. I don't need to tip my mechanic when he charges me an arm and a leg to fix my car. Like, we're tipping too many people.
Are you manufacturing an argument? Because I can see what you're saying. If the argument is like maybe you shouldn't tip a Starbucks person. Like I've never tipped an air conditioning person or a mechanic.
I'm not necessarily, maybe not those two, but everybody wants their hand out for a tip these days, not just waiters and waitresses.
Have you ever been to one of those DraftKings events where they don't tip and it's like very weird when you're going up and like no one has cash because DK I guess tips, but it's just like. Bobby, here's what I do. Always tip for drinks.
Here's what I do. I go to the person behind the bar at the beginning of the night, look them in the eyes. I pull out a crispy, depending on the event, maybe I pull out a crispy 20, maybe a 40, maybe 40, 220s. Yeah. I say, look, here's my tip. I won't be pulling out any more money every time I come up here. Just remember my face, look at me in the eyes. Know that I tipped you well, man, but I'm not going to do this every single time. But here you go. That's for the night. I appreciate your service. And I
like that. I think that's
way. Classy. That's classy.
I think you should be tipping those people. I feel like I see a lot of people not tip. I'm like, what are you people doing?
I'll do that at a wedding. I'll pull the same move. And the thing is, you got to go to the same person over and over, right? Because then you want to get credit. If I do I want credit for it. I don't want to have to point to that guy and say, hey, this guy can vouch for me. I dropped the 20 before. But yeah, you have to keep going back to the same person. But Chop, I pull the same move. I just Googled Scottie Pippen bad tipper, and the first thing that popped up is Scottie Pippen's nickname. He was great, in parentheses, at not tipping. So again, I don't know how true or not true this is. Maybe it just works out because of the last name.
Someone on the slate tonight's a bad tipper. If we want to transition a little bit, I can. My girlfriend waited on Andrew Benintendi, and he was not a great tipper.
Well, he probably grew up in a different culture, so maybe he didn't adjust, right? Never mind. Benintendi for the White Sox.
What culture did he grow up in, Dean?
I was thinking. I thought you said
from, like, the Midwest.
I thought you said Andre Bargnani for some reason. What is wrong with me? I don't know why I was thinking Andre Bargnani.
What are you doing? This show's already off the rails, man.
Oh yeah, I've waited on a few athletes, and we don't have time to get into it. There's not many, but some good, some bad. But all right, let's. What was the official number? Do you happen to have it as far as like 10 on the 100?
You said it wasn't a good tip. Tuukka Rask, horrible tipper. Any hockey guys out there? Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much all that she said, though.
And Chop, you were in the service industry forever, but I think you were back of house, right? Mostly
back of the house, yes, sir.
All right, so you didn't really have to mess with any of that tip and stuff. All right, 5 gamer. We're gonna go game by game per Bobby's request. What's up, chat? Kindly hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, hit all the buttons, do all the things. But before we go game by game, before we hit up all the angles and all the games, again, pretty simple. This is like smaller slate. We ran a poll last time we did it. The people liked it. The majority of the people liked it. Bobby likes it. So Chop, you've been outvoted, and you'll adjust just fine. But before we do that, Chop, I want your screenshot of the slate. I think it's kind of straightforward, but it's baseball and goofy stuff happens. But I'm curious what your general plan is before we kind of dive in and go game by game.
What's my plan? I really have no idea, Dean. It's 5 games. Pitching is terrible. Screenshot, I think pitching is terrible. Yeah, there's some decent pitchers talent-wise, but we'll get into why they're probably not very fun to play. I mean, 10-6 for Pablo Lopez against him. Like, he's a good pitcher. So, I mean, generally the pitching is bad. On 5 games, I'm not a big stack guy. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight because there's a couple offenses that are good, but the rest of them are very mediocre to bad. So, I don't know, Dean. It's just it's a 5-gamer for a Thursday. Dean, this might be my first Thursday MLB show of the year. Thursdays are usually pretty weird in the slate size and all that. And yeah, I'm paying for it tonight. This is terrible.
Butto Jenkins says, any Bobby's Triple D play of the night. Is that one of your bits? Is that one of your gimmicks? I thought that was the Guy Fieri, diners, drive-ins, and D.
Triple D?
I don't know.
I don't know if that's I don't think I have one, to be perfectly honest.
There's another route, but I was going the
I had one and I had one early on in my career and someone took it. I can't say who, but someone did steal it at another site.
Oh boy, that shot's fired.
Come on, give us some initials on that.
I had a good one.
Just need one initial.
I don't want to go there. It was stolen from me. Just completely stolen.
This is why you got to copyright everything. Bobby, what do you learn the hard way sometimes? What do you have as far as your screenshot when it comes to the slate? Chicago, just as a general thought. Speaking of Scottie Pippen, Chicago. Both the White Sox and the Cubbies look like 2 of the best offenses, as is Arizona. I think we have pretty clear, 3 top pitchers by default, I guess. It's Lopez, Steele, and Kelly. I did drop the weather report in chat. I'm not sure if Roth's going to get to update this, but yellow, orange in Pittsburgh. And really good hitting weather for the White Sox. Looks like good hitting weather for Minnesota as well. Weather Edge actually has a fire emoji for the White Sox. What's weird about Minnesota is that Weather Edge doesn't like it in a small sample. But again, Roth in his blurb liked how the temperature was for bats. But yeah, Bobby, before we go game by game, give me your overall thought process, how you're attacking this slate.
Yeah, not my favorite slate. I think pitching's pretty straightforward up top. Lopez, Steele, Kelly. Then going down to the bottom there, Waldichuk and Schultens. They're in the best weather game. You just hit on it. In that Oakland-Chicago game, which I think is predominantly going to be like the optimal construction, which I don't know about chalk White Sox, but it doesn't seem like something I'm too interested in. But I do like playing the weather, so that's going to cause an issue for me. I think you get different with the bats. Pitching, like I said. I think mixing in like a Haney isn't the worst idea, or Kyle Gibson. That's pretty much how I'm approaching the slate.
Yeah, I was very close to writing up the over in that Oakland-Chicago game. And then I remember the White Sox are gutless, but I do like the over in that game. Talking about the weather, they also have the one extreme hitters umpire. The Oakland bullpen, we'll talk about that later on in the show as well. It's still an absolute disaster. They do have Tim Anderson back today. I don't know if that's good or bad, but he's back for the White Sox. Joey Votto went on the IL for Cincinnati. As far as lineups we are still waiting for, let's see. West Coast games. I think we got everything, right? We have every lineup. They all came in. Oh, great. Awesome. Okay. Very first game. Let's talk about it. First game on the slate. It is the Cubbies at Pittsburgh. 9 total. Chicago minus 168 favorite. Justin Steele taking on Robert Zetters. I don't know. Robert Zemeckis. Looks like the long man's going to be Andre Jackson. The Robert Z thing came somewhere about an hour or two ago. He's going to be an opener, I presume, and the presumed long man is going to be Andre Jackson here for Pittsburgh. Again, 5 total for the Cubbies, 4 total for Pittsburgh. Chicago, one of the most popular teams on this slate. And again, I can just say Chicago is a general thought, but we're talking about the Cubs right now. Bobby, do you agree? Are you on the popular Cubs? And just as a general note on this slate, it feels like DK inflated like every hitter by at least $500 just because the way what we had, like all these guys, there's a lot of weird prices out there just because, like I said, I didn't want it to be like a pick 'em. Like we have no Dodgers, we have no Braves. A lot of these guys have like some weird inflated prices, but we have the money to spend, certainly. Your thoughts as far as the Cubs, Bobby? Is Bobby on mute?
Oh, sorry. My B, Dean.
No problem.
Yeah, Bellinger, Happ. I think they're fine. Talkman, I'm interested in. Candelario did me dirty on Sunday. Got a goose egg from Candelario. Needed like something just to jump up to like second in a tournament. Swanson, I'm on. Suzuki, all these guys kind of make sense. The only one I'm not really interested in is probably, actually, I don't know. I like the Cubs pretty much all the way around. For me, like, I don't know, Happ and Bellinger, they stood out prior to the pitching change, but now that we got that, I guess, I don't know. I'm more on, I would say, the lefties, Happ and Bellinger still.
Yeah, we were talking about one at bat, like you said, for Bellinger. He's going to have to go left on left, and he'll get a couple from Jackson and somebody else at the bullpen or something like that. Doesn't mean you can't play him, but it's a slight hit. And like he's one of the points, he's just really, really expensive. I don't know. Has he been 6? Is he 6'4"? Yeah, 6'4". Just like
his
that's
price
like
came up significantly.
That's bets. Bellinger's been good, but come on, get out of town. Obviously, he can hit 2 homers and completely break the slate, a 5-gamer, and there could be 7 homers hit in total, and he hits a third of them. Chop, your thoughts as far as the Cubs? Are you on the Cubs?
Yes, Dean, on the Cubs. Sorry, Miss Jackson, the long reliever. Sorry, Miss Jackson, but I'm on the Cubs here, man. I like. Actually, Dean, we don't have much time here, so
we got time.
I need to go ahead and, we don't have like the regular amount of time. So as we go, I need to be throwing my stuff in, Dean. So the Cubs are going to be where Chopper's Knockers pops up to. Yeah, the Cubs.
Can we guess where they're at? It's around Bellinger, right?
I mean, it's freaking. There's only 9 guys, and you can probably count out 3 of them, Dean, already. So it's not a tough deal. But actually, yeah, it's surrounding, but we're sandwiching Cody Bellinger in there. I'm going Ian Happ and Suzuki as my two guys. So as Chopper's Knockers. Ian Happ, Suzuki. Yeah, this is going to be, and we're not going to, I don't know if you're going to go by and say, who do you like for stacks tonight and all that kind of stuff, Dean, because you totally threw me off with this format. But I'll say that if I were doing the rankings today, the Cubs would be number 2 on my list. So, yeah, I do like them. I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out which way. I guess I would lean lefties a little bit more than righties, although I think they're all fine. Nico Horner is god awful expensive, and so is Dansby Swanson and Bellinger, y'all mentioned, but you're just going to have to eat some of that. That's why I chose Happ and Suzuki. They're actually a little bit more affordable, so that's kind of where I'm at with the Cubs.
Kind of smart, I think, of the Cubs. Like they probably had Tauchman leading off, but with Robert Z opening the game, they threw him down in the 9-hole. He typically leads off against righties, and I assume, I'm not sure, but they're probably thinking that Jackson likely enters the game by then. So pretty smart move there by the Cubs. So it's a kind of a push-pull because he jumps from the 1 to the 9 spot, but he likely gets his first at bat versus a righty. We'll see. By the way, as far as the pitchers, I should have mentioned that ownership-wise, Steele is one of the top 3 ownership pitchers on the slates on Fanduel. He's grabbing 16% on DK. We're talking about 28% Steele. Now, he's not one of the top pitchers because that is reserved for Kelly and, I know who it is. Pablo Lopez, of course. There you go. But Steele is the 3rd most popular. Let's kind of talk about both of those together in conjunction with the Pirates, Chop. How do you feel about Steele, and then how do you feel about the Pirates attacking Steele?
I think Steele is a pretty good. I think he's a pretty good option. He's not going to rank, like, if I'm tearing him up, he's probably in the 3rd tier, and that's only because he's probably like maybe the 2nd best pitcher on the slate. But $9,800 on DraftKings, it's a bit much for Justin Steele, so it drops him down tier wise. But talent wise, yeah, I like him out here on this slate, and it's 10 pitchers, and we've got like the whole Pittsburgh long, so we can all automatically factor out some of those guys. So yeah, he's going to rank pretty high talent wise, just salary if you're going to get there. And he's good enough that I'm not necessarily in love with taking any Pittsburgh players here. I'm not going to highlight anybody. Certainly on this kind of a slate, you can go with these righties here who are pretty good. Brian Reynolds is pretty good. Brian Hayes has been, dare I say, he's been kind of hot in a recent stretch. Connor Joe's pretty decent. But I'm not in a rush to put any of these guys in here. I'd much rather roster much more Justin Steele than any of these hitters.
For Steele, I love that Sawinski cracked the lineup. I know he's kind of buried a little bit, but so far 92 at-bats this season. Sawinski has a 48% K rate against lefties, which is egregious. They just have nothing else to throw out there. Sawinski's been really, really good against righties, but against the lefties, he's been atrocious. Feels like a couple Ks on layaway in the back end, and not just Sawinski, but it falls off really, really fast after Connor Joe, the 4-hitter. I know Andy Rodriguez is a prospect and theoretically should be good one day, but he's been bad. A 0 ISO and 24 at-bats against lefties this year, a 33% K rate. Yeah, if he can get 3 times through, if he somehow can get 3 plate appearances against all those guys, I think Steele obviously is pitching well, and I like his chances to really take advantage of the back end there. Bobby, your thoughts as far as Steele? We didn't talk about the pitchers for Pittsburgh. I don't think. If you want to, by all means, go for it. And also the Pittsburgh bats.
Yeah, so Steele getting 30% ownership, like no one's going to go to Pittsburgh at all. Terrible implied team total. I think you can get some of these right-handed bats. Brian Hayes, I don't hate. Connor Joe's fine. That would really be it. He is giving up 57% hard contact to righties, 60% to lefties over the last 30 days, 217 ISO to lefties. Woba's 348. Like, maybe some of these, like if you want to go left on left in a 5-game slate to differentiate yourself. I'm currently at the field with Steele. I don't know if I'm going over on it. I think I'm probably just going to stay at the field. But these guys on the Pittsburgh side are more of like a mini stack, if anything, or just one-offs hitting my teams.
Just a correction. Bad job by me. I had to hit refresh on the plate IQ, and Sawinski not in the lineup. I was rooting for him to be in there. The back of the lineup is rough. A lot of guys that are inexperienced. Vinny Capra is a person who allegedly is professionally trained, hits baseballs. Alfonso Rivas, I think they got him. Is that the guy they got from the Padres, I want to say? Bay is down at the bottom, left on left. Williams, not spectacular either. So it's still pretty weak. I was rooting for Sawinski to be in there, but still I will have some interest as far as Justin Steele. Let's move on. Toronto, Baltimore. This is a 9 total. Jose Barrios versus Kyle Gibson. This is the game, Chop, that I'm kind of afraid of not having enough of. There's some pretty big names in here, obviously. I think Barrios and Gibson are both kind of sort of somewhat good enough. The ballpark is a little more pitcher-friendly than we might think it is. And Toronto is not as good as we probably think they are. I was looking at Vladdy specifically before the show, how terrible he's been for the last month, just like 1 homer, 4 extra base hits. He's been atrocious. I know he's been terrible at home. He's just been bad overall this season, certainly by his standards. Yeah, let's start with Barrios and Gibson, and feel free if you want to jump to one of the offenses, Chop, your thoughts when it comes to Toronto at Baltimore.
I'm torn here on this one, Dean. I don't know if I'm going to be buried because I don't have enough of the starting pitching in this game, or if I'm going to be buried because I don't have enough hitting. It could go either way.
Yeah.
I will say this. you just mentioned Toronto, maybe not as good as we thought they were. I also don't think Baltimore is as good as their record would indicate. So, yeah, I would say this, Dean. If I was going to lay money right now on the American League, I think I'd put money on Seattle to win the American League if I had to make that bet right now. I think I've seen enough, so I think they're a very good team. But yeah, both these teams are good, not great. I prefer Berrios over Gibson in this game by a pretty wide margin. Gibson has more of an opportunity to get shelled in this game. Berrios should stand pretty firm. But as far as the hitters are concerned, I'll go ahead and lay it on the table. A little BVP here, Dean. BVP suggestion of the day. Adley Rutschman. Got to get him in there. He's got some of the BVPs popping on him today, so we got to play that one. But other than him, I'm not a big fan of these other guys in this lineup. Berrios could implode. That's what he does sometimes, but I'm not a big fan on any of these other guys. On the flip side, I would probably put Toronto on this weird slate like this. I'd put Toronto as my third favorite stack, believe it or not. And I don't have I couldn't pinpoint which direction I want to go with that stack, but because I think they're all in the same boat. But I do kind of like them in this game. So I'd put Toronto up there. Take your pick on the hitters. But Adley Rutschman got the BVP suggestion of the day.
Yeah, I just fired it up. 13 official plate appearances versus Berrios, 8 hits, 5 of which are singles, 2 of which are doubles, 1 dong as well. And controlling the plate discipline, no strikeouts, 2 walks. Consensus-wise, as far as our stacks, myself, the Luch, Keith Eister, Squirrel Patrol, we got the White Sox number 1, which when has it ever gone wrong? The gutless White Sox. Arizona number 2, the Cubbies number 3, Oakland 4th. A little bit of love for Toronto, a little bit of love for Baltimore, a little bit of love for Minnesota. So more than half the teams in this slate have been nominated when it comes to favorite stacks on the board. As far as ownership, when it comes to these pitchers in this game, they're both kind of sort of fine. I'm not really seeking them out, but I guess if everything else works, I'll roster some Berrios, 18%. We're looking at Gibson at 11%. So, not the most appealing options, but they're a little bit cheaper if you don't have the salary for guys like Steele or Lopez or Kelly. Bobby, your thoughts as far as, the pitchers, and feel free to talk about one of the offenses.
Yeah, so for me, this is going to I'm going to play this like I'm playing Oakland, Chicago. You can definitely play both sides of this. I'm playing 150. I like the Baltimore lefties. Adley Rutschman, like Chop hit on. I like O'Hearn. Cedric Mullins, I don't mind. Gunnar. I think these guys are good. Santander. Berrios can blow up, so that's why I'm taking my shot with these guys. On the other side, I do think Toronto is going to be a stack that not a lot of people are going to get to. I really like Danny Jansen. I think Matt Chapman is fine. And then the lefties, Varsho, like when you target Gibson, you want power lefties. These guys like Belt, Varsho, and Biggio aren't really power lefties. But over the last 30 days, the pitch mix, Varsho's been hitting Gibson's pitch mix well. Same with Belt. So these are guys that I'm going to have exposure to also. With Berrios, I don't know what I'm going to do with Berrios. I don't love rostering Berrios. I definitely prefer Gibson to Berrios. So if I had to choose one of the two pitchers, I would lean Gibson.
Yeah, you mentioned Varsho. He's really cheap as well, and I just much prefer lefties in this ballpark as opposed to righties. I just pulled up Baseball Savant's their ballpark factors as far as 2023, and for righties, they got a 101. 100 is average. They have a 101 for I'm sorry, that's for lefties. This is for lefties, so slightly positive for lefties there, and for righties, I believe it's a 97. So it's a pretty kind of negative. Doesn't mean you can't hit it out, obviously, but it's just a better ballpark for lefties these days in Baltimore. Chop, give me your favorite hitter in this game. Who's your favorite hitter as far as Toronto, Baltimore?
The whole game, it's going to come from the Toronto side because I like them a little bit more on offense. So looking at the order, if I'm factoring in salary and everything, I'm going to go ahead and go with Varsho. If I'm just factoring in raw points, I'm going to go and get up to Vlad Guerrero.
Butto Jenkins has a question, by the way. Can we gotta halt the show for Butto?
Oh yeah.
He says, can you roster Rob Z and pay up for all the bats knowing you might only get 6 points? Like, look, Bobby, you make a bunch of lineups. I make like 5 or 6. There's no chance I'm doing that.
So when we got on, I was just like, oh, who's this? Like, I just had refreshed Plate IQ. I'm not playing Rob Z. I have no interest at all. I don't know. It definitely hurts the Cubs for me a little bit. I definitely liked the Cubs previously more.
Yeah.
Because I hate bullpen games, but it is a 5-game slate, so they're still in the mix, but they're definitely knocked down a peg. No Rob Z for me.
For what it's worth, by the way, Rob Z, as a general thought, when your K rate is the same as your walk rate, that's usually bad. The sample isn't huge. It's 17 innings. He's got a 15.7% K rate and a 15.7% walk rate. He's getting hit hard. He's giving up fly balls. He's got a Sierra just lower than 6. Again, this is small sample stuff, but he doesn't seem very good. XFIP is 626, ERA 529. Again, this is all in small samples, so I don't know if he's good or bad or a prospect. I'm not going to pretend like I know much about the dude, but if you like the Cubs before, you could still like the Cubs for sure. All right. By the way, Chop, are you out of the bits? Is that it? We fired them all off. Have you saved any in the tank for the people, or are we done for the show? You got any left in the harness?
Well, if Spidey makes an appearance here, maybe I'll throw a triple G out there. But again, Dean, we're already at 5:02 Central Time. The other crew will be here pretty soon. I didn't want to get caught with my pants down, Dean.
They're coming in at 6:20, a little bit later than normal. So
again, nobody tells me that. If you told me that, then I keep some of the bullets in the chamber. Nobody told me that, Dean. This is ridiculous.
Chop, do I need to pull up the email where it says
who reads those fine print on the email? The guy's sending me.
It's a standard font. So
the guy's sending me freaking Moby Dick over here in an email. I'm supposed to read all that? Come on, Steve.
So, do hit that like button. Do subscribe. And by the way, you are going to need to fire up a triple G because I assume Spidey is lurking because TJ is hosting. He's hosting Crunch Time today. By the way, I know you know this, Chop, and I know Bobby knows this as well, but the dongs, Dean's dongs in particular, have been hot. They've been on fire. We have hit 3 days in a row, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, and 1 out of 3 yesterday, but still 1 out of 3. That ain't bad. We're going to fire up a couple dongs as well, get some homers on the board. There's still just 3 games left, Chop. We got 3 games, plenty of time to knock this out. Wait, Tim is hosting? Wait, why is Tim hosting over TJ? That seems like a weird shuffle. All right. Are we going to have taters? Tim is in chat, and he's saying he's hosting. Are taters a thing? We're definitely going to have Spidey, I presume. But, I guess Tim wants to host. Okay, fair enough. and I guess TJ was like, all right, I'll yield. And then that works out just fine. Hey, Texas is at Minnesota. 8.5 is the total. Andrew Heaney is taking on Pablo Lopez. Yes, I did not read the email either, apparently. I only read the part that's about me. I don't read the part that's about Tim. It's like, yeah, well, he'll figure it out on his own. Pablo Lopez, probably the best pitcher, like actual arm talent pitcher on the slate, taking on Texas. Texas, of course, is a tough offense. So the matchup is not perfect. Also, the weather is pretty good for hitting baseballs in Minnesota. Bobby, Pablo Lopez against Andrew Heaney, 2 pitchers I think we have interest in, one distinctly more. Your thoughts when it comes to the arms?
Yeah, I like both of them. I like Lopez, even though I will have some Texas stacks. I'm playing 150, and I think not playing Texas on a 5-game slate wouldn't be the best thought process if you're playing GPPs. And then on the other side, Heaney hasn't pitched well, but his underlining metrics have been good. Last 2 games, he got rocked. I don't mind him being my GPP pitcher that I'm getting overweight on, just because we've seen with Minnesota, their righties just don't get it done. High K rate. There's guys like Royce Lewis, Kepler, Farmer, Luplow. They look good versus Heaney. But I think Haney's the guy in GPPs I want to take the stance on just because of the upside. So definitely attacking the Minnesota righties with Heaney.
I'm pulling up the pinch hit risk for Luplow. It's got to be high, right?
It's definitely high. Yeah, it's definitely high.
Yeah, see what Carty has it in the bat. We'll pull it up in a second, and Carty will be on later as well. By the way, Chop, can you speak to this user in chat? Chopstash777's been says Dean knows nothing. Dean not again knowing anything, always a thing. Chop, is this one of your burners? Is this a coincidence?
You know what's weird, Dean, is Kirky accused me of having. I guess it was this particular user name came up on y'all's last show. He accused me of having a burner. No, it's not I do not have any burners, Dean. I promise you, I don't. Especially not. Look here, right here. Mike, check. You see, like I've got my own thing. I don't need to be logged in as Chop Stash. I can't tell if he's talking about my stash or if it just happens to be a random username, but you know,
I keep getting hit with burners on Twitter because I have strong Paul Pierce takes over Dwayne Wade.
Well, those are deserved. You're thinking Paul Pierce is better than Wade is outrageous, but
it is not outrageous. It is not outrageous. You're from Florida.
It's incorrect. Maybe it's not outrageous, but it's
not
incorrect.
It's not incorrect. It's a good take. He didn't have a better career. No, I never said that. I just said he was a better player.
What's the what?
He's a better player. He's a better player.
Wade did one of the greatest finals of all time, like, indisputably.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I argue.
A conversation for another day, I suppose. By the way, most popular pitcher on the board here. Well, no, second most popular pitcher on the board on DK Kelly. We'll talk about him in a second at 47%. Lopez at 34. Haney is grabbing. Let's see, where's Haney at as far as ownership? 18. Okay, yeah, I skipped over. I knew it was somewhere in the teens. Your thoughts, Bobby, as far as the pitchers? Let's talk about some hitters when it comes to Texas and Minnesota.
Yeah, Texas, Seager, Lowe. I think the lefties make sense. Heim. From the right-handed side, Semien, Garcia, Duran. But they're still like a mini for me. You can get to them because Lopez has been fantastic. That's one thing, but 5-game slate, I think Texas is probably one of the offenses with the best ceiling for GPPs.
So, okay, according to the bat, not to give everything away, but certainly supports DerekCarty. Luplow, surprisingly, not the highest. Minnesota is loaded with pinch hit risk. Luplow at 22%, Solano 50%, Michael A. Taylor 37%, Farmer 22%, even Vasquez at 14%. Everybody's got something above 1 or 0 besides Kepler, Polanco, and Correa. Doesn't mean you can't do anything. Doesn't mean you can't stack up Minnesota, but just be aware of that. Chop, you go ahead.
Oh, can I add something in about Haney? So I do like Haney a ton. I do prefer Haney at home relative to on the road, and he is in Minnesota. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, fair enough. Chop, your thoughts as far as the bats in this game, and give me your favorite hitter.
Okay, just the bats, huh? You don't want me to talk about the pitchers? Just the bats?
Give me both. I apologize. I thought you hit that for some reason, but
oh boy. Now Pablo Lopez is the most talented arm on the slate, but the first thing that I saw was 10-6 on the salary. That struck me, and that's why I wasn't great. But then you look and there's only 5 games, and there's some really bad pitching. So I guess, yeah, we gotta put him. I gotta put him up there as probably the best pitcher, just because there's such little pitching outside of him and Kelly. But the Texas lineup is not like there was a point in time this year I would have said that's the best offense in baseball. They were right there with the Braves. You know, they've lost Josh Young recently. That hurts. Some of these guys, Corey Seager's good, but I mean, for a while he was the best hitter in all of baseball. He's kind of cooled off just a little bit, just enough to bring the whole lineup a little bit back down there. So I don't fear him as much as I did a month ago. So I'm okay with Pablo Lopez, and I like Andrew Haney also, just because we're limited options tonight. He's not that bad of a pitcher that he's shown the last 2 starts. He's a little bit better than that. Minnesota can be pretty bad, but if I am going against him, I don't mind Carlos Correa. And I don't mind taking a stab on Jordan Luplow. I mean, I know he's probably going to get pinch hit for at some point, but you're getting the number 3 hitter. Should get something out of him for only $2,600. He's always been a guy. He's a guy that they play against lefties. That's his whole career arc has been start against lefties. So I'm okay taking a stab at him on 5-game slate, trying to get you a home run in that first at bat, which Haney has been giving up these last couple starts. On the Texas side, yeah, man, I'm not on the Texas bandwagon here on this offense. I would much rather load up on a whole bunch of Pablo Lopez. You know, you can always take the Corey Seager one-off. He's one of the best in the game, matchup proof. But after him, Adolis struggling and Semien struggling, and the bottom of that lineup, doesn't. I don't fear it. So I'd much rather have a whole bunch of Pablo Lopez than Texas stacks.
Just a heads up, we did get a refresh when it comes to weather. I went ahead and dropped that in the chat. Yellow, green for the White Sox. We are green, yellow in Baltimore. We're green in Minnesota. And Roth says hot, humid, winds out the left at 10 miles per hour. Bump to the bats. We got to get a move on now. Oakland at the White Sox. Somebody in the chat was saying I'm all by myself in the White Sox. I don't think so. And first of all, I don't want to say I love the White Sox, but you got to pick somebody. And if ever there was a day for the White Sox to do their thing, it appears like at least should be today, facing Waldichuk. Waldichuk, one of the worst pitchers, if not the worst hitter, the worst pitcher taking the bump today. I'm going to go ahead and pull up his stats and talk about that. Who he's backed up by? He's backed up by a horrific Oakland bullpen. Now, keep in mind, there are 30 offenses in baseball, 30 offenses in baseball. The Oakland bullpen, right, against the rest of the league, we're talking about being dead last in Sierra, walks, xFIP, and they're 29th as far as striking people out. As for Waldichuk, he has the highest ERA, the highest walk rate, and the second highest Sierra. So, and it's scalding. It's really, really hot in Chicago. We're getting the fire emoji. The White Sox are probably excited. They got rid of some of their dolts in the front office. Still the same dopey owner. Maybe that'll change at some point. But they do a total above 5. A total on the board is at 10. Yeah, I like the White Sox a good bit. Chop, are you in on the White Sox? Let's talk about the pitchers first. I don't think that's a long conversation. You tell me otherwise.
Man, it's so bizarre, Dean. I actually, on this kind of a slate, there is something to be said for two pitchers in this price range. And I mean, Waldichuk is not good. The numbers are not good, but he does have the ability to put up a 15 to 20 point DK performance, which you would absolutely probably love to have tonight. It's a bad team he's facing. So I don't think he's like completely off the table. And I kind of wanted to think about Schultens, but man, I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe. I mean, 5K, like if you're asking me about saving money, these guys are much better than the Rob Z kid that we talked about earlier. Yeah. He has no pedigree at all in the minor leagues or anything. So I would much rather take one of these. I think there is a place to roster one of these guys with Pablo Lopez or Merrill Kelly and then load up on some hitters. I think they're playable just because of the slate. If this was tomorrow night, absolutely not. But tonight, sure. Obviously I'd favor the hitters in this game over the pitchers. That's for sure. Luis Robert, probably, the best bat on the board all around. He's just a really good hitter. But Andrew Vaughn is jumping off the page to me for the White Sox side. So those are my two right there. I think anybody in this game is in play, but on the Oakland side, Brent Rooker could go get behind a little Brent Rooker and the little hangover, Zach Geloff. Let's get him. I think he's all right tonight. Expensive, but that'll just bring down the ownership.
Yeah, life comes at you fast when Zach Geloff is 5.7 on DK. He's in the 4s on Fanduel. I know he's been just spectacular, in a small sample, and especially against against lefties or righties. Against righties, he's got an ISO almost at 400, a 391 ISO, 102 plate appearance as far as the sample size. He is striking out a fair bit, but that does, he's been spectacular so far. A couple cheapies, by the way, Chop, just to mention your former Astro there, Corey Lee is drawing the catching there. You got a 2K catcher on DK, and he had some power and some speed. Kind of flashed that a little bit. What else do you want in a 2K catcher? And I don't mind Trace Thompson as another cheap potential homer. In the interest of time, Bobby, do you have anything else to add as far as pitchers? Otherwise, tell me your thoughts when it comes to the hitting in Oakland.
You guys,
Chicago.
Waldichuk, 28% to righties. He would be my favorite from the pitching standpoint. Geloff and Luis Robert are probably my two favorite hitters in this game. Could add Rooker and Trace Thompson in there. You guys hit on them. Ryan Noda and Shea Langoliers are fine too. Avoid the lefties for Oakland. It looks like Schultens is pretty strong versus lefties.
He's been reverse splitsy, and my sneaky homer. And this will be my first Dean's Dong, and I'll drop the other two in chat in the interest of time. So I'll write them in chat like when I'm signing off. The first one, though, a little bit ambitious. Shea Langoliers. Let's go Shea Langoliers against Schultens. Let's talk about the last game. By the way, if you had issues with audio, I saw people talking about it in chat. just refresh. Hit the refresh button. It should be good to go. Should be fine if you're having any issues. Cincinnati versus the D-backs. 9 is the total. Merrill Kelly versus Brandon Williamson. Kelly is drawing a ton of ownership as of right now, especially on DK. We got to roster 2 of these pitchers. Bobby, what do you have as far as Williamson versus Kelly? Feel free to touch on whatever you need to touch on as far as this game.
Yeah, I'm playing Kelly heavy. I know he's going to be very highly owned. It's going to be pretty close to a lock button for me. I just think he's the best pitcher on the slate, and I don't think it's particularly close with the price. Like Arizona bats as well. Walker, Marte, Moreno, Gurriel, Longoria. Is Longoria in the line? Yeah. So I think all those guys are fine. Corbin Carroll hitting 7th. Lefty on lefty hasn't been great, but always like Corbin Carroll. On the Cincy side, if you want to play Cincy guys, Friedel, Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, I like from the Cincy side. Like from a right-handed standpoint, I think he'd be my favorite righty, and that's pretty much it. Like not anything too much outside of that on Cincy.
I do think it's interesting as far as Cincinnati. If you pull up the plate IQ, like you're seeing a ton of strikeouts and a ton of power. So like I think you're supposed to be over the field on Cincy. Like if you're a leverage guy, they're not going to be that popular on the slate. It's it's a small slate. I think you should get some red stacks against Kelly just in case. They're locked in for 9. They strike out a ton, 31% strikeouts as far as this lineup outside of Steer and Friedel. Everybody else is in the red, and that's what's popping Kelly as well. Pretty good strikeout pitcher. He should get a boost with the K's there against the Cincinnati lineup, but play both extremes because Cincinnati, they can strike out 10 times. They can hit 4 homers. They can do both. Both those things can certainly happen. Chop, your thoughts as far as Arizona and Cincy.
Yeah, Kelly is the second best pitcher on the slate. He'll be way more popular because he saves a whole bunch of money compared to Lopez. That's why I favor Lopez a little bit because of the ownership. But Kelly's really good too. A lot of strikeouts, like you said. He's good enough that I don't want to stack. I really don't want to stack Cincinnati, but I don't mind chasing the 1 off or the 2 off, like somewhere in the order in certain lineups without Kelly in there. Williamson, I can't get behind rostering him. I think I'd rather go with one of the Oakland or Chicago starting pitchers rather than Williamson. He's just not. He just doesn't. There's nothing there for me. And Arizona's not bad. Arizona, I don't mind his lineup here tonight. Ketel Marte, if you can afford it, very good. Christian Walker, great season. Get behind that. They got some cheapness in here too. Tommy Pham has been pretty good lately, and he's 3rd spot, 3,900. And I don't know where he came from. I haven't really noticed him in the lineup lately, but Evan Longoria must be back. So Longoria batting 6, 3,300. Always been a guy who does much better against lefties than righties. So I can get behind that one. And Corbin Carroll, wow, he got bumped to the number 7 spot. I didn't even see that.
He's been bad against lefties.
He's been bad versus lefties, like really bad.
Yeah, I should have known because it's not a coincidence, Dean, that he moves down in the order as he moved up in the gutless Kirky rankings.
Oh,
so that's those 2 things
still
are
not
correlated.
released, by the way.
Those 2 things are correlated.
Yeah. When is he? No, he actually mentioned him the other day. He gave his top 3 at least. He didn't give like a full 30-team ranking, but he gave his top 3. I believe the Padres were in that. Gutless by association. Christian Walker looks like one of the best hitters on this slate. Just so well positioned. 358 ISO versus righties this season. 421 WOBA. Williamson is not really going to fool him. You mentioned Longoria. I think it's worth noting, and I'm sure Carty will talk about it when he jumps on here soon enough. Arizona is another team that's got a fair bit of pinch hit risk. Once Williamson comes out, most likely a righty comes in. Longo about 30%. Buddy Kennedy's another guy. So there are some Kennedy Benton. That's another that can be fool's gold batting in the 2-hole. Like it feels kind of Kevin Millar-ish to some degree. No, Kevin Pillar. Kevin Millar is a different guy. It's like 10 years older. I'm thinking of your Red Sox. We've given Kevin Millar a shout out and Andre Bargnani. So that's how we're closing up the show. We've messed up on 2 names there, Bobby. But otherwise, how did it go as far as game by game? Did we do okay?
We did all right. We ran a little bit over just because we were kind of shooting talking too much at the beginning of the show. So
yeah, we had to talk about tipping. That was important. I think the people learned a lot for sure. We have Tim, TastefulTides. Of course, he's hosting. I don't know who else would host with this threesome. You got DerekCarty, CEO of the Bat, TJ Zwarych, one of the greatest DFS players in all of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Tim, how How is everything? How we doing?
I've never heard Chop so triggered before about tipping. You know, like, I've never heard him so fired up about anything. I've been listening to Chop for years, and I've never heard him so upset.
I love the passion. Like, if you're going to be passionate about one thing, that's a good thing to pick. Yeah. It's a character flaw. We live in a society. If you're not tipping, like, you know, assuming everything's standard, I'm talking about the things you're supposed to tip
Dean. Here we go. All right, let's take it easy.
I'll get off my soap. I'm just piggybacking on Chop. Chop's got me fired up as far as tipping.
We are not the same, Dean. We are not the same.
What do you mean? I'm backing your issue. All right. Well, nonetheless.
Well, my issue was we're tipping too many people that don't deserve the tips, Dean. If you're making a decent salary and I don't need to tip you, man. That's kind of not the point. The point is these waiters make $2.37 an hour intentionally. I got to tip. I got to tip these kind of guys. I got to tip the guy at the airport so he doesn't lose my bag. Fine, I'll tip you, dude. Whatever. But I don't need you coming, like, you know, to mow my grass and I'm owing you already. And I got to tip you too? Come on, dude.
I think you're adding that. That's not nobody has to tip you give them something.
Everybody wants their hand out. Everybody wants their hand out, Dean. Everybody wants their hand out. You seen the videos? Has anybody seen these viral videos of these Uber delivery drivers getting a tip, but it's not big enough for them, so they're playing with the food and stuff? Come on, man. Give me a break.
Carty, has anybody ever tipped you like that? Used the bat and said, "Hey, man, I just won 10K or I won 20K. Here's a tip." Slide into the DMs. How does that situation go down? You are on mute, sir.
And Carty, mute.
Derek, you're on mute.
I was on mute.
Yeah, you were.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No, that's never happened to me. I'm kind of surprised. I figured somewhere along the way someone would have done that. I don't know whether I would have accepted it or not, but no, never. I don't think I've ever gotten an offer.
Yeah. I'm curious how that would have played out. If the number is like big enough, you're like, oh, maybe. But if it's like, otherwise, just go into your $100. I appreciate it. Give it to your favorite charity. But thank you. I'm glad it worked out for you. That kind of thing. Otherwise, but like TJ, well, we're gonna get out of here. But I used to work in a place that had a lot of tourists, and you know, a lot of the Canadians came down. TJ, is that a culture thing? Because is it 10% in Canada? What's the story here? Is this a I don't know. Is it? Can you speak to that on behalf of the entire country of Canada?
On behalf of the entire country, no. But we're talking like being a server at a restaurant. Standards, if it's good service, is like 20%, and then 10% bad service.
All right, maybe I was just a bad server. That could have been it, I suppose. I don't know. Otherwise, we're already overtime. You guys got plenty of time because only there's such a short slate. Myself and Chop and Bobby. We got anything else for the boys where we step aside to get out here and make time for crunch time?
No.
All right. This is so. I thought Tim was going to thank me, but I realized no. I got to yield to Tim. Tim's going to hold it down. You got the Fanduel sponsor crunch time. You got TJ. You got Carty. Tim, take it away.
Thank you, Dean. Excellent stuff as always from Dean, Bobby, and Chop. Welcome to Fanduel sponsor crunch time, where we bring two of the sharpest minds in the industry. First off, we got DerekCarty from the Bat. What's going on, Derek?
Not much. Having a pretty good day. Taking a victory lap in YouTube chat at the moment. People were very upset that I recommended Luis Severino last night, but that ended up doing pretty well. So yeah, feeling pretty good.
And you don't have to tilt Ohtani double headers tonight either.
No, I don't, which is really nice.
Right. Yeah. And then we also got TJ. What's going on, TJ? Great call on Josh Lowe earlier with your Spidey
Thank
bomb.
you. Got him parlayed with Aaron Judge, who hit one out as well, alongside a bunch of guys tonight. So hopefully the Spidey bombs for this evening come through as well, and we can make some money on the parlays as well as DFS. Broke even on my 150 build on the ugly 3-game slate this morning, so I will take that. Considering I had 80% Johnny Brito and he had like 33 pitches. And so I will definitely take a breaking even and ready to dive in for some Spidey bombs. Dean really did not do a good job of getting the likes up. We got almost 500 people watching. We're not even at 100 yet. So first Spidey bomb at 150 likes.
All right, that sounds good. Special shout out to Kevin Roth last night with a great call, great weather forecast on that Dodgers Guardians game. Great job. Hope that everyone tailed his forecast because he really nailed that one. That was awesome work on his part. He's not available this evening, but he has just updated weather. Looks pretty good in Chicago. Looks really, really good in Pittsburgh. It sounds like there is a delay in the Toronto-Baltimore game, but he said that that's really not much to worry about, and that seems to be expected. So I'm not too worried about that. Carty, why don't you kind of give us your overview of pitching, starting with Fanduel?
So we have a small slate tonight, and we don't have any true aces on this slate. The guy that's probably closest to it is Pablo Lopez, who's not in a great spot. Maybe Justin Steele, who's kind of overrated and is just fine. But I think the top pitcher of the slate, because it's just kind of a small gross slate, is Merrill Kelly. Cincinnati has been kind of declining of late, which should be expected because they were playing over their heads. They're regressing pretty hard. They're getting a big part downgrade tonight, and they're the most strikeout heavy team on the slate. And so Merrill Kelly, as a guy who is above average, maybe borderline good, and has a very, very long leash, projects pretty well in this spot, all things considered. So I think he's the guy you're playing in cash on both sites. And then on DK, you're probably just going to pair him with one of Lopez or Steele, because after that, things get real gross. My preference is just to save the money with Steele. He has the better matchup. He's a little cheaper. I'm not going to tell you wrong to do Pablo. You're probably going to get a heavy mix of all three of them in your tournaments. And then after that, good luck. You can definitely take a shot that you get good Andrew Haney tonight and he goes out and throws 6 innings with 12 Ks. And that happens sometimes, especially against Minnesota. That's certainly possible. You can play one of the really cheap guys if you want. You can play Jesse Schultens or Ken Waldichuk. I don't think on this slate that's outlandish, because there really is there's not much else. I don't think I have much interest in Gibson or Barrios just because they're kind of expensive. They're not that good. I'd rather just pay for Lopez or Steele at that point. So that's kind of my take on pitching.
All right, sounds good. TJ, give me your thoughts on pitching, starting with Fanduel, and then move over to DK for me.
So I agree 100% with everything Carty said from an optimal perspective, but I'm doing some weird things today in tournaments just because I'm playing a lot of lineups in a low entry contest, and so I'm trying to do some weird things to get off the chalk today. On FanDuel, from a tournament perspective, I think of the big three, my favorite would be Justin Steele, just because he's projected to come in at the lowest ownership today. It's not by a big amount, but I think I probably like him the best for tournaments regardless, now that we know the weather's going to likely be okay there. Andrew Heaney in tournaments, I agree with Carty. You just kind of hope you get the good Heaney today. Because he's like the one cheaper guy that does have the potential to go strike out 10 guys today, especially against the high strikeout Minnesota team. So that's probably as far as I would go over on FanDuel. Maybe in 150 max setting, I'd probably include a little bit of Jesse Schultens and Ken Waldichuk just in case, so I can spend up on all my favorite bats in those lineups, but that would definitely be only an MME situation. On DraftKings, where I am doing that, I'm just hitting the X on Kelly and Lopez, just based on ownership. I don't think it'll go great. I think chances are Kelly and Lopez are probably going to be the two highest scoring pitchers on the slate. But based on that ownership, I'm going to be going completely without them in tournaments today. I'm going Steele is the only guy I'm paying up for, and then everybody else I'm just going for the mid-tier and cheapies, so I can get a lot of expensive bats and stack up teams like Texas, who are going to be very low owned against Lopez, and a few of these other teams like the Cubs, who are much pricier than they have been all season. And so my pool consists of Steele, Gibson, Barrios, Heaney, Williamson, Waldichuk, and Schultens, with Steele and Heaney being my top two.
So no Andre Jackson?
No.
Carty, Andre Jackson off the board for tournaments, in your opinion?
Probably. I mean, I'm not going to tell you you're terrible to do it just because this slate is so bad. But if I'm going to play like a guy that's really cheap, I'd rather have Schultz or Waldichuk, especially the guys that tend to have bulk roles, which I don't even know if he's confirmed to be the bulk guy. We're kind of just assuming he will be since he was scheduled to start. They tend to not go as deep. So it's probably not for me. No.
All right. Derek, do you want to kind of give an overview of stacks?
Sure. So, because pitching is kind of just like everyone's mediocre, stacks are kind of like that. I think the only stack that I wouldn't have interest in today would be the Pirates, and I think everything else is viable. So, if you want to stack the Reds against Merrill Kelly,
in 150 lineup, that's the one team I X'd out completely. Every other team I have stacks of.
Yeah, I think that's the move. Like, you should have some stacks against Merrill Kelly. You should have some stacks against Pablo Lopez. The stacks that are probably like the best are the ones that are going to get the ownership. It's going to be like the Cubs. It's going to be Oakland. It's going to be the White Sox. It's going to be Arizona. I don't see an edge really on any of them. They all project similarly in terms of projection and ownership. You'll mix in a bunch of those guys in cash games. In tournaments, though, if you just want to go heavy on Texas, on Cincinnati, on Toronto, on Baltimore, like, go right ahead and do that.
Yeah, it is going to be like 95 degrees in Chicago. So, I mean, the weather there is amazing for hitting. We don't have a huge sample size in weather edge, but still, I mean, 95 degrees, a very, very high dew point. So, I mean, I know those teams are gross, but I'm pretty high on Oakland and Chicago. TJ, what are your thoughts?
I like Arizona today as my favorite stack on the board. They're who I'm getting to the most, but I really like Texas and Chicago Cubs as my number 2 and 3. Earlier in the day, I kind of had White Sox as maybe my number 1 when I was doing the morning grind with Stevie. That's what I was thinking, but I just doing the Lopez fade, doing the Kelly fade. I don't really need the salary savings on the White Sox, which was one of the reasons I liked them best before. So Luis Robert, I still think is probably my top bat on the slate. But the White Sox have fallen below in terms of how much of them I'm getting to, just because I don't need the salary savings as much. In 150 lineups, the team I have stacked the most is Arizona with 21. The team I have stacked the least is Minnesota with 12. And so I'm really just very even on all of these teams today. If I was doing a single entry, I think the ones I'd be prioritizing would be Arizona 1, Texas 2, Cubs 3. And then if I need to save some salary, I'm going to the White Sox. But I do really like getting to some contrarian Reds today as well.
Sounds good. All right, guys, please hit that like button. This show is sponsored by Fanduel. You can sign up for the Fanduel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state and take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets, plus $100 off NFL Sunday ticket. Terms and conditions apply. All right, TJ, do we got enough likes for Spidey?
We're 3 likes away, so I know we're going to have 3 more people hitting it right now. Let's get me up to 175 likes for the second Spidey bomb. But the first one, I am going to my favorite stack of the day, Arizona, and going to a guy whose odds, in my opinion, should be quite a bit lower than they are. But it's Christian.
Don't say Walker. It. Oh, that's who I have.
Walker. The Tater.
No.
Back-to-back shows, we're getting the Spidey Bomb Tater combo plus 420 on FanDuel. Christian Walker.
Well, that's my Tater number 1. Right when you said it, I was like, that's my Tater. All right. Let's go position by position. Derek, can you start us off with some catcher?
Sure. So catcher and cash, at least, is very straightforward because the best catcher on the slate is really cheap, and that is Shea Langelier. He's 3-2. He's against Jesse Schultz. He's getting this monster park upgrade going into the best home run park in baseball. You don't need to overthink it. Just play him in cash. In tournaments, you can certainly mix in some other guys. Adley Rutschman, obviously going to be a great one-off guy. Mitch Garver against Lopez, I think, is great. I mean, there's any number of catchers that you can just kind of throw at the wall and hope they stick.
Yeah, what do you got, TJ, for catcher?
I am underweight on the Flying Frenchman Chez Langelier today, but it does frighten me because of all the reasons that Carty said. And so my number one pivot today is I'm going to Gabriel Moreno. My next favorite is going to be Danny Jansen, getting to some Jan Gomes, and then a spend up for Adley Rutschman I like as well.
All right, take me over to first base.
First base today, we are also 1 like away from Spidey Bomb number 2. I got a third one at 200 likes, so keep hitting the like button. But for number 2, we're going to my Blue Jays, plus 550 on bets 365, plus 520 on our sponsor FanDuel. It is Dalton Varsho, been playing much better baseball lately ever since his slow start to the year. Finally able to hit a fastball that is not at the bottom of the zone. So he is Spidey Bomb number 2. But at first base, obviously, my favorite is Christian Walker, the first Spidey Bomb, followed by Cody Bellinger. Love him today. I'm saving salary at pitching a lot so I can afford the more expensive Bellinger now. And then I like these athletic guys as well, Seth Brown, Ryan Noda, and, of course, Andrew Vaughn batting 5th today for the White Sox. My 2 favorites to get different in tournaments today are going to be Nate Lowe and Brandon Belt, but my favorite overall is Christian Walker.
Derek, what about you at first?
Yeah, I think Christian Walker and Bellinger are good. The bat has these cheaper guys projected basically the same as them today. So I think from an optimal perspective, it makes a lot of sense to go cheap at first base. The bat really likes this whole Oakland White Sox game because it's 2 of the weakest pitchers. It's I think the best run environment on the slate. So you have Ryan Noda for 2.8. You have 2.8 on FanDuel. That is 3K on DraftKings. You have Seth Brown for 3.7 on DraftKings. They're both great. And on the other side, you have Andrew Vaughn for 3.3. So for me, I'm picking one of those 2 guys, probably Noda or Vaughn, and then maybe Brown in the outfield. And that's kind of first. I mean, I think you can definitely do one-offs because people are going to be focused on Walker and Bellinger. Like, you should probably have a little bit of Vladimir Guerrero. You should probably have a little bit of Nate Lowe, that kind of thing. But otherwise, those cheap guys really are where it's at.
Sounds good. Take me over to second, please, Derek.
Another Oakland guy. I can't believe Zach Geloff is 5.7K on DraftKings and that I'm recommending him at that price. But such is the state of second base. And Geloff is definitely the guy that I think makes the most sense, especially because we don't even really have a lot of cheaper guys on this slate. You know, I don't really want to play Buddy Kennedy. I mean, I guess you can at 2-1 on DraftKings. If you're not spending up for Geloff, I think you're probably just playing him. But, you know, otherwise, there's not really much here. Like, Marte is great in your Arizona cash corner.
You really think Geloff is the second base cash game guy?
I really do.
That's what I think too. It's a pretty bad position, but it just seems so gross that he's so expensive. But
yeah.
I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, on FanDuel, it's more of a decision because Ketel Marte is significantly cheaper. So I think you're probably playing one of those 2. But on DraftKings, it's either Geloff or all the way down because what else are you gonna do?
And like all the way down is like really bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. TJ, tournament takes for second.
Marte is my number 1 guy here. Geloff is number 2, but I don't mind getting to Jorge Polanco today. A little bit of Whit Merrifield and Matt McClain in tournaments as well.
All right. Take me to third, please.
19 more likes for Spidey Bomb number 3. Either at third or at short, Gunnar Henderson is one of my favorite plays on the slate. Jorge Polanco is a guy that I really like. I mentioned him at second, but you can play him at third too. Royce Lewis, you can also get at third. And, of course, Bobby Kennedy batting second. You can play him here as well. But Evan Longoria and Heimer Candelario, I think, are 2 very interesting spots to go to for some power. And Yoan Moncada is basically going to be my biggest fade because he's coming in very highly owned.
All right. Derek, what do you think for third base?
I agree that Gunnar Henderson's kind of like the clear top guy. If you can afford him, great. Probably more of a tournament guy than a cash guy. On FanDuel, Cabrian Hayes is probably the one Pirate that I would have interest in because he's good. He's 3K. He's got the platoon advantage. He's leading off. Like you mentioned, there is that good weather there. So I don't mind just doing Ke'Bryan Hayes, especially because, I mean, he's pretty cheap. Like the guys you're getting a discount on really aren't any better. You have Moncada, who I think is totally fine, especially on DraftKings. You have Longoria, who I like more on FanDuel at his price. And you have Buddy Kennedy, who I like more on DraftKings at his price. And that's kind of it. You should have a little bit of Matt Chapman for home run potential in tournaments, and that's third. Oh, also Jonah Bride on DraftKings at his price, I think, too.
Yeah. All right, take me over to short. And I know you're going to say Tim Anderson. It's Tim Anderson Day, isn't it?
On DraftKings, it certainly is. He projects as the third best guy on the slate, almost tied with number 2. And he's 3.5K cheaper than number 1. So it's Tim Anderson Day. I like Seager a lot in tournaments. I like Swanson quite a bit in tournaments. But Tim Anderson's leading off against Waldachuk, and he's 3.1K, and that's pretty silly. On DraftKings, or on FanDuel rather, Dansby Swanson, you're getting significantly cheaper. So for 3.2 on FanDuel, I think Swanson is probably your guy, but you could just play Tim Anderson at 2.5 if you want. Gunnar Henderson, we mentioned at third, but I think he's also viable at short here. And that's shortstop.
Yeah, I'm very, very nervous about a chalky Tim Anderson, but I think I'm going to do it anyway, at least in cash games. I think it could be an absolute donk play, but I'm going to give it a shot. All right, TJ, what are your thoughts on tournaments at short?
Corey Seager, Gunnar Henderson, Dansby Swanson are going to be the 3 guys I have the most today, but I do like Carlos Correa and Bo Bichette in tournaments quite a bit as well. Tim Anderson, just because of that ownership, is I'm going to be well underweight. Ellie De La Cruz, I like quite a bit in tournaments as well.
All right, take me to the outfield, TJ.
Luis Robert, top bat on the slate. Cody Bellinger is going to be the next guy I try and get to a lot. Eloy Jimenez, I love today. Dean knew I liked him, and so we picked him as a Dean's dong because that's the kind of content Dean does. He can only give it if he's heard somebody else say it. Anthony Santander, one of my favorite outfield players today. Dean's going at me in chat right now. That's why I had to give him some shots back. Suzuki batting 5th today. He's been lower in that lineup, and he's finally getting a nice spot today at 5th. I like him quite a bit. And then Tommy Pham, great salary saving option as well.
All right, Carty, give me your cash game outfielders.
It's the White Sox guys. It's the Oakland guys. It's a little bit of Chicago. Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez are great. For Oakland, you have Brent Rooker, who's awesome. You have Seth Brown. For the White Sox, you have Trace Thompson, who's pretty cheap. And for the Cubs, you have Seiya Suzuki. That's really kind of the guys that I'm focused on. For cash, I don't think you need to do much else. In tournaments, obviously, you can do other stuff. If you're playing against Pablo Lopez, play some of the Rangers guys. Play, you're getting them at cheap prices. Play a little Ezekiel Duran. Play a little Leody Taveras. Certainly play a Adolis Garcia. But in cash, just stick to the stuff that makes the most sense.
Carty, would you mind giving the people maybe a home run call from the bat?
Sure. Let me pull it up real quick.
We are 14 likes away from the next Spidey Bomb.
All right. By the end of mine, we better have 14 likes. All right. So top guy on the slate is Luis Robert, followed closely by Brent Rooker. Somebody that's a little more off the board. I'm having trouble even finding somebody that could be considered off the board. Like all the best stuff is just like the obvious stuff here. Anthony Santander. There's your off the board play for a home run. And then for betting, top play of the day is Jonah Bride plus 1225 at Bet365. Basically all the Jonah Bride props are completely off today. Bet the over on every single Jonah Bride prop you can find.
All right, good stuff. I'm glad I asked. I never would have thought Jonah Bride was going to be the guy.
Well, Jonah Bride is normally a guy that gets pinch hit for all the time, but it's because he only starts against lefties. When he starts against a righty, he doesn't get pinch hit for. So his lines are basically assuming he's going to get fewer at bats than he's actually should get today. And so there's value on all of them.
Yeah. All right, TJ, we're 3 likes away from Spidey Bomb number 3. I say we give it to the people.
Let's do it. Keep hitting that like button. Get us over 200. Spidey Bomb number 3 today. I got 2 for you. And it's number 1, Seiya Suzuki plus 700 at Bet365 plus 650 on DraftKings. And then the other one I like as well. I believe the reason why I wanted to give 2 is because after just accusing Dean of plagiarism, I believe Gunnar Henderson might be a turd bomb today. And so he was somebody I wanted to go as a Spidey Bomb as well. So I figured I better give an extra with Suzuki, but Gunnar Henderson's plus 550 on PointsBet, plus 550 on Bet365, 500 on DraftKings. I like him to hit a home run today as well.
Yeah, my second tater of the day is Andrew Vaughn at plus 400. That's my second home run call of the day. We're going to go head over to the live stream chat over in Discord, take some QQs. TJ, FanDuel single entry, favorite stack, and do you like Heaney on FanDuel?
I do like Heaney on FanDuel. My favorite single entry stack was the Diamondbacks.
Do either one of you have any interest in Williamson with CB Buckner calling balls and strikes?
I can't do it.
I have 16% in 150 lineups.
You have how much?
16%.
Okay. All right. Who has more upside, Baltimore or the A's on FanDuel, Carty?
I mean, the A's, it feels weird to say it, but yeah, the A's are the better offense tonight, and I think they have the most upside. I think Baltimore will actually be lower owned, so if you want to be contrarian, it's Baltimore.
Yeah. DK GPP, I'm stacking Oakland, Bride, Garcia, or Kemp Polanco.
I do Kemp Polanco.
All right. Let me see. We got a couple more QQs coming in to the Discord. Guys, you can definitely ask questions in YouTube also. If there's any questions on the slate.
About anything. It's a 5-game slate. Hit us with something crazy.
Pablo or Kelly? He didn't give a site, but you guys like Merrill Kelly or Pablo Lopez?
I mean, Merrill Kelly's the better play, but he'll be more owned.
For what it's worth, I'm fading both of them in tournaments today because of ownership. But optimally, I would say Kelly. Lopez will be a little lower owned.
Carty, can you explain Arizona to me? How do you stack if you have money? Is Longoria going to get pitch hit for? Is the 2 spot worth punting?
I mean, Longoria does have a high pinch hit risk, and he's just coming off the IL, so it's possible they, really look to just give him a couple at bats to ease him in. That said, I don't think you have to exclude him. He is a decent hitter. He's in. I mean, it's up to you. Personally, I probably have him in mind, but you can.
Marte, Pham, Walker, Moreno, and your choice of Gurriel or Longoria. Or Carroll, even.
I don't hate Buddy Kennedy. With how cheap he is, you can definitely have Buddy Kennedy in your Arizona stacks.
There's a question in YouTube that says, TJ, cash pitcher, Lopez, or Steele? I know that this was addressed to TJ, but I'm pretty sure Derek would say neither one, right? You would say Merrill Kelly. But if that's for their second pitcher, who would you prefer, Lopez or Steele, if that's their SP2?
Steele for me.
Yeah, me too. I agree Kelly would be the one, especially if it's on FanDuel, but Steele would be the most important second one for me.
Derek, who are your favorite two pitchers for DK Cash? Kelly and Steele? Is that where we're going with?
Kelly and Steele, although I think Kelly and Lopez is fine also.
Carty, who's your favorite lefty masher on today's slate? Oh, I'm
Trick
sorry.
question.
Bona fide lefty masher. Sorry.
My favorite bona fide lefty masher on this slate is Jonah Bride, because he's starting against a righty, and I'm here for that. I am here for that.
Looking at the splits today, do you guys like Vaughn or Eloy?
Both. If I'm choosing one,
I like Eloy more, but they're both good.
Yeah, I think the answer is definitely both. Giloff or Marte on FanDuel Cash at second base? I think this is a good question.
Giloff.
Flip a coin. If you want to say play Marte.
FanDuel, personally on FanDuel, I'd save that salary and do Marte.
Yeah. Lopez or Kelly on FanDuel Cash at pitcher. I think we've settled that. At least Carty and I think that Kelly's the best cash game pitcher.
Definitely.
Chinatown wants to know, Derek, third base, DK
Cash. Third base, I don't mind if you just want to punt it with Buddy Kennedy or Jonah Bride. I think that's probably the preferred route, and then you find spend ups at other positions.
Lawrence Butler is supposed to be a power guy, but is he sneaky today?
He's not a guy I'm thinking about, so I guess he's sneaky.
Yeah,
I liked him more when we were projecting him to bat leadoff.
I'm assuming this is a question for TJ. Which Avenger would be the best baseball player?
There's one correct answer, TJ. I mean, think about it.
I guess this could be a question for Carty too. I mean, I can't.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe when you really think about it, maybe
it'd be tough because the answer is Thor, but every time he swung, the ball would probably break. And so, like, if throwing a ball is an out, then that'd be tough. So I go Thor 1, Hawkeye 2, Captain America 3.
Hawkeye's definitely like that underrated, like low-owned GPP play that no one really thinks about, but his hand-eye coordination has to be like insane.
And that's the thing. He doesn't have that much pop, but he'll bat 100 on the year. So,
TJ, favorite game stack, DK GPPs?
The last one, Arizona and Cincinnati.
Carty, Corbin Carroll, okay at GPP dart on FanDuel?
I mean, sure. I don't love him today, but sure. He's certainly fine.
FanDuel single entry. Should I play Heaney at pitcher with Arizona Cup stack or Steele at pitcher and game stack Oakland and Chicago?
The second one is pretty close to optimal. The first one is going to be very different, and that's the one I like more for tournaments.
All right, TJ, FanDuel single entry, O'Hearn, Seager, Seth Brown, or Rushman, Gunnar, and Rooker?
First one.
All right. Dean has a question for TJ. I just finished playing the Uncharted games on PS4. It was fun. Hi, Tim. What games similar to Uncharted would you recommend?
I would say the Tomb Raider games, and they are coming out with a new remake of them. That would probably be your closest thing to like a 1-for-1. But I don't know. Dean, I know you played the first The Last of Us. If you haven't played the second one yet, that's what I'd go to.
Carty, who's your favorite punt catcher on DK?
Shea Langelier, but he will be popular.
Do you have anybody else that would be like a punt catcher that would not be as high owned?
Yeah. So I mean, TJ mentioned him earlier, but Gabriel Moreno, I think, is a good punt catcher. He will also be pretty popular, I think. So if you really need someone just like way off the board, they don't exist. not cheap and unpopular.
TJ, DK, GPP, Steele and Henderson, or Gibson and Seager?
Steele and Henderson.
All right. I don't
People
see
are asking
any other
about Corey
questions.
Lee as catcher, but he projects for pretty decent ownership too. So it's kind of all the cheap guys project to be owned.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds. So if there's any more QQs, get them in. We might finish a couple minutes early. I see a couple people typing in Discord. TJ, you like Heaney on FanDuel, right?
I do, yeah. I like Heaney on both sites. On FanDuel, I think he's interesting for GPPs. On DraftKings, he is my third highest owned pitcher.
Yep. All right. Well, we're getting really close to the end here. I think we're going to end the show a little early tonight. For Derek, for TJ, and our wonderful producer, Steve, always working hard behind the scenes. Thank you very much for watching. You have been crunched.